The twin suns of planet Varine rose slowly over the crystal towers of the royal city. Their light reflected off silver buildings and golden banners that swayed in the gentle wind. Varine was a proud world filled with tall, strong people who believed in power and discipline. They served their ruler, Queen Alira, who was known for her wisdom and calm judgment. She ruled from a palace that stood above the clouds, built from shining white stone and guarded by loyal soldiers. One quiet morning, the peace of Varine was broken when a streak of fire crossed the sky. The people of the city looked up in surprise as a small ship fell through the atmosphere. It landed in the valley near the palace walls with a loud crash. Alira ordered her guards to investigate. The soldiers, covered in silver armor, marched through the dust until they found the wreckage. From the twisted metal, a small figure climbed out, coughing and holding his arm. He was not one of them. He was human. The man looked thin and tired. His clothes were torn and covered with dirt, but his eyes were calm. When the soldiers surrounded him with their weapons raised, he lifted his hands and spoke in a gentle voice. He said his name was Rian, and that his ship had been caught in a storm while traveling through the system. He said he meant no harm and only wished to repair his ship. The guards looked at one another, unsure what to do, for they had never seen a human before. When Rian was brought before Queen Alira, he bowed deeply. The court watched him in silence. Alira studied him carefully. She had seen many warriors, traders, and travelers, but never one who looked so plain and humble. She asked him questions about where he came from, and he spoke honestly. He told her about Earth, a small planet far away, and how humans had learned to survive through intelligence, not strength. He said he was an engineer who built machines to make life easier. His words were simple, yet they carried quiet confidence. The royal advisors whispered among themselves. They thought the man was useless, a weak creature with no skill for battle. But Alira did not agree. She saw something different in him. She saw patience and kindness, qualities that her people often lacked. She decided to let him stay in the palace as a guest until his ship could be repaired. Days passed and Ryan walked among the people of the city. He watched how they worked, how they built their machines, and how they trained for war. He asked questions that made the engineers frown and think. Soon he began to fix small things around the palace like broken gates and power lights. He did it quietly without asking for reward. When the guards saw his work, they laughed and said that his designs looked strange and old. Yet when they tested his repairs, everything worked better than before. Queen Alira noticed his efforts. She began to visit him in the workshop, watching how he used his tools with care. He explained how simple things could become powerful when made with thought instead of pride. Alira listened, fascinated. She had been raised to value strength, but Ryan spoke of balance and understanding. Slowly, her respect for him grew. One evening, while walking in the royal gardens, Alira found Rian sitting near a small pond, watching the reflections of the stars. She asked him why he did not speak proudly of his abilities like her warriors did. He smiled and said that pride often blinds a person to truth. He said he had seen powerful men destroy what they loved because they could not admit they were wrong. Alira was silent for a while, thinking about his words. As the days turned into weeks, their bond deepened. Alira invited Rian to dine with her council, where he spoke about cooperation and peace between worlds. Some nobles mocked his ideas, but Alira defended him. She told them that wisdom could come from anyone, even from a stranger from another sky. Ryan always remained respectful, never arguing or showing anger. His calm nature brought peace even during heated debates. Soon the people began to talk about the strange friendship between the queen and the human. Many thought it was foolish for their ruler to spend time with someone so weak. Others whispered that perhaps the human had hidden power, but Alira did not care what they said. She saw in Ryan a mind unlike any she had ever known. One night during a royal ceremony, Alira made a surprising announcement. She declared that she would unite with Ryan, not out of duty but out of trust and respect. The hall fell silent. Her advisors protested, saying that such a union would weaken her rule. But Alira raised her hand and silenced them. She said that a ruler must follow both reason and heart, and that strength was not only in muscles but also in mind and spirit. Rian stood quietly beside her. He looked unsure but honored. He bowed to the crowd and promised that he would serve the queen with loyalty. He said he did not seek power or wealth, only the chance to help her build a better future. His words touched even those who doubted him. The wedding was simple but grand. The people came from across the planet to see the human who had captured their queen's trust. Many still laughed behind their hands, calling him the fragile husband, but Alira ignored their mockery. She believed she had seen something great hidden inside him. After the ceremony, Ryan moved into the royal quarters. He continued to work quietly, repairing old systems and teaching new ways to improve the city's energy flow. Alira often watched him from afar, wondering how someone so calm could change so much around him. She did not yet know that the man she had married was far more than he appeared. As the sun set that evening, the sky of Vereen glowed orange and gold. The queen stood by her balcony, feeling the wind on her face. Below her, Ryan was helping the workers fix the power grid that supplied the palace. He was smiling as he gave simple instructions, guiding them with patience. Alira's heart softened. For the first time in years, she felt peace. Yet somewhere deep within her mind, she felt a strange curiosity. There was something about Ryan she could not fully understand. He carried himself with quiet confidence, as if he had faced great trials before. He never spoke about his past in detail, only saying that he once served a cause greater than himself. Alira looked up at the stars that night and wondered who her new husband truly was. She thought she had married a humble man who wished for nothing more than peace. But fate was preparing to show her that this gentle human carried the power to change not only her world, but many others beyond the stars. The city of Vereen slept under the twin moons, unaware that the quiet man who walked its halls would soon shake the heavens themselves. The story of Ryan and Queen Alira had only begun. Weeks passed after the strange marriage between Queen Alira and the human named Ryan. Life in the royal city of Vereen slowly adjusted to the presence of its new royal consort. The people whispered about him in the markets and halls, calling him the quiet one or the soft man. Many believed he would bring no change, for how could a single human do anything in a world ruled by power and might? But Ryan did not seek to prove them wrong with words. He worked with quiet focus, spending hours in the palace workshops with the engineers. The Vereen engineers were proud and strong-minded, believing their machines were perfect. Yet Ryan often pointed out small flaws in their designs. He never raised his voice, but his calm explanations made them listen. He showed them how water could be used to turn wheels that generated endless energy. He explained how light from the suns could be stored in simple panels. The engineers first laughed at his strange human ideas, but when his small models worked perfectly, their laughter turned to silence. Slowly, they began to learn from him. Queen Alira often visited the workshop to watch him. She found peace in seeing his simple ways. He never demanded attention, yet everyone began to notice his quiet wisdom. He spoke of balance between nature and machine, of strength that came from understanding, not from pride. His ideas began to spread through the city. Even some of the soldiers started to respect him, yet not everyone was pleased. General Draven, the head of Vereen's army, saw Ryan as a threat. He believed the queen's attention toward the human weakened her rule. He often warned Alira that trusting an outsider could bring danger. Alira listened but did not agree. She told the general that wisdom should not be judged by origin. Still, she could not ignore the tension growing among her advisors. One morning, a messenger ship arrived from the border outposts. The guards rushed to the throne room and the air filled with worry. The messenger, covered in dust and fear, knelt before the queen. He reported that a powerful warlord named Corvac had entered the system with a fleet of warships. Corvac was known for conquering worlds and enslaving those who resisted him. He demanded that Queen Alira surrender Vereen or face total destruction. The court fell into chaos. The nobles argued about whether to prepare for battle or send gifts of peace. The generals shouted that war was the only answer. Alira stood silently, thinking deeply. She asked for information about Corvac's forces, and the report was grim. His fleet outnumbered theirs 10-1. When the meeting ended, Ryan stayed behind. He asked the queen softly if he could see the city's defense plans. The generals laughed. One of them said, "You are no soldier, human. You should worry about the gardens, not the battlefield." Ryan only nodded and replied that sometimes the smallest details decide the greatest battles. His calm tone silenced the room for a moment. Alira looked at him and saw something in his eyes, a quiet fire she had never noticed before. That night, Ryan studied the old defense system alone. The technology of Vereen was strong but rigid. He noticed flaws in the energy grid and weaknesses in the shield network. He wrote notes and drew small symbols on a datapad, humming softly as he worked. The guards who passed by wondered why the Queen's husband stayed awake all night, staring at blueprints instead of sleeping. When the suns rose, Alira found him still working. She asked if he had found anything useful. He smiled gently and said that the system could be made stronger with a few changes. He explained that energy could be redirected through smaller circuits to build layers of protection rather than one single shield. She listened carefully, though she did not fully understand his methods. His confidence gave her hope, but before any changes could be made, the first enemy ships appeared in the sky. Dark and massive, they filled the horizon like storm clouds. The people of Varine watched in fear as fire rained from the heavens. The royal alarm sounded, and soldiers ran through the streets preparing the defenses. In the palace, General Draven ordered the human to stay hidden, saying the battlefield was no place for him. Ryan did not argue. He simply nodded and walked to the observation deck, where he could see the approaching fleet. His eyes narrowed as he watched the enemy formation. He whispered to himself that their movements were too slow, their energy signatures too exposed. It was clear to him that they relied on brute force rather than planning. Queen Alira joined him on the deck. She stood beside him, her face calm but her heart heavy. She said she feared this war would destroy her people. Ryan turned to her and said that destruction is never certain when one still has the will to protect. He then asked her to grant him access to the control center. The Queen hesitated. The generals had warned her not to trust him in matters of war. But something deep within her told her to believe in him. After a moment, she nodded. Ryan walked into the control tower where the operators worked in panic. He moved between them, checking the screens and reading the energy outputs. The soldiers were confused. They did not understand how this calm man could help in such chaos. Yet within minutes, Ryan began to issue clear instructions. He told them to reroute power from the southern towers, to adjust the frequency of the shield, and to lock the defensive cannons in a specific pattern. His tone was firm but not loud. At first, the officers hesitated. Then one of them tried his command and the shield suddenly strengthened. The next energy wave from the enemy ships was absorbed completely. The room filled with gasps. The generals who had doubted him stared at the screens in disbelief. Outside, the enemy fleet continued its attack, but the new defense grid held strong. Alira watched from the palace balcony as beams of light clashed above the city. She could see Rian in the tower standing still among the chaos. He looked peaceful, almost too calm for a man under siege. By nightfall, the first wave of the enemy assault had failed. The people of Varine cheered, believing their strength had won the day. But Rian knew it was only the beginning. He studied the readings carefully and noticed the enemy ships regrouping beyond the outer ring. He realized that a far greater attack was coming soon. As the stars appeared in the dark sky, Rian walked back to the balcony where Alira waited. She asked how he had done it. He said that every problem, no matter how large, can be solved when one sees it from all sides. She smiled faintly, calling him her humble genius. But in her heart, she began to wonder who he truly was. The night grew quiet, but tension filled the air. Far away in the cold emptiness of space, Warlord Corvac stood on the bridge of his massive ship, watching Varine through his monitors. He growled that the Queen's world would fall and that her strange human husband would not save her. Back on Varine, Rian stood at the window, staring at the sky. His reflection looked calm, but his eyes told a different story. They carried memories of battles long past, of worlds defended and lost. The humble man that Queen Alira had married was not who everyone believed him to be. Deep inside him rested knowledge and experience that could change the fate of entire worlds. The storm over Varine had just begun, and soon the Queen would see what kind of man her husband truly was. The next morning began with fear across Varine. The skies were filled with dark clouds that glowed from the fire of enemy engines. The fleet of Warlord Corvac hung above the planet like a metal storm. Every few minutes, the air shook with the sound of distant explosions as small defense stations tried to fight back and failed. The people of Varine hid in shelters, praying to their ancestors for protection. Inside the royal palace, Queen Alira stood with her council in the war chamber. The generals argued loudly about how to defend the capital. Their plans were filled with confusion. They shouted orders and blamed one another. Alira tried to calm them, but their fear made them blind. In the corner of the room, Ryan stood silently watching the chaos. His eyes were steady and calm. When the shouting grew louder, he finally spoke. His voice was not harsh, but it carried a strange authority that silenced everyone. He said they could not fight Corvac with old tactics because the enemy's technology was stronger. He told them to trust him and give him control of the main defense system. General Dravon protested, saying that no outsider should command the army of Varine. The other officers agreed, but Alira looked at Ryan and saw determination in his eyes. He was not guessing or hoping. He knew what needed to be done. She raised her hand and ordered everyone to obey his command. The generals stared in disbelief, but they followed her words. Ryan gave a small nod and walked to the control tower. The tower stood high above the palace with glass walls that looked out over the city. From there, every defense weapon and shield could be controlled. The operators were frightened, but Ryan's calm presence steadied them. He looked over the data screens, studying the energy readings and attack patterns of the enemy ships. His hands moved quickly across the controls as he gave short, clear instructions. Outside, the city's energy shield flickered and began to change color from silver to blue. The generals watching from below thought something had gone wrong, but within seconds the new pattern began to pulse with stronger waves. Ryan had adjusted the shield's frequency, allowing it to absorb energy instead of only blocking it. When the next enemy blast hit, the shield did not weaken. Instead, it glowed brighter and sent a shockwave back toward the attackers. The people watching from the streets cheered. For the first time, the mighty fleet of Corvac lost several ships in a single strike. Ryan continued to work, connecting his datapad to the palace network. As the system accepted his code, the old human ship he had arrived in months ago came to life. The ground shook as its engines roared. The guards who had left it untouched now stepped back in fear and amazement. The small ship rose slowly into the air, unfolding hidden panels that revealed heavy armor and energy cannons. Symbols of the old Earth Defense Forces appeared on its sides. The people of Varine stared at it in shock. Queen Alira, watching from the balcony, could not believe her eyes. The man she thought had come from a simple world had brought with him a war machine unlike anything they had ever seen. Ryan's voice came through the communication system, calm and steady. He said that this ship was an old Guardian vessel, designed to protect colonies in distant space. He had rebuilt and hidden it, waiting for the right time. He told the operators to link it to the defense grid. With a few commands, the ship joined the fight, firing precise energy beams into the sky. Each shot hit an enemy target with perfect accuracy. Corvac's fleet responded with greater force. Dozens of ships began to descend toward the capital. Ryan adjusted the control settings again, sending drone units from his ship to intercept. Tiny machines hidden inside the ship's hull flew into the air and formed protective circles around the city. They created new barriers that shimmered like light nets, catching enemy fire before it could reach the ground. The battle in the sky grew fierce. Flames lit up the clouds as enemy ships exploded. The sound of thunder filled the air, but beneath it all, Ryan's voice remained calm. He moved from one console to another, checking every reading, adjusting every code. The operators followed his every order, their fear replaced with trust. Down below, Alira watched everything on the palace monitors. Her heart pounded with both fear and admiration. The man she had married as a humble engineer now commanded her entire planet's defense like a master strategist. His eyes never showed panic. His movements were fast and sure. Every decision he made saved hundreds of lives. When one of the enemy cruisers broke through the upper defenses, Ryan ordered the old ship to engage directly. The people of Varine watched from the ground as his ship climbed higher into the sky, facing a vessel 10 times its size. The battle between the two ships lit up the heavens. The human vessel moved with impossible speed, dodging blasts and returning fire with perfect aim. Inside the control tower, Ryan worked without rest. His hands flew across the panels as he guided the ship remotely. The operators could barely keep up with his commands. The Queen's advisors, who had once mocked him, now stood in silence, watching as he turned the tide of war. After a long and tense hour, the final blast from Ryan's ship pierced the heart of the enemy cruiser. It broke apart in a burst of light and vanished into the clouds. The skies of Varine began to clear. The remaining enemy ships pulled back, regrouping far beyond the atmosphere. For the first time, silence returned to the palace. The soldiers cheered across the city. The people came out of shelters, looking up at the shining blue shield above them. Queen Alira ran to the tower where Ryan stood. When she entered, he was leaning over the control desk, breathing slowly but still calm. She looked at him in awe. She said she had seen many warriors in her life, but none like him. He smiled faintly and replied that he was not a warrior, but a builder. He said that war was only another kind of problem to be solved. His words were simple, yet they carried a strange strength that touched her heart. Outside, the city lights flickered as the systems recovered from battle. The palace was damaged but still standing. Ryan ordered the engineers to repair the energy grid and prepare for another attack. He told them the battle was not yet over because Corvac would return stronger. That night, Alira could not sleep. She stood on her balcony, thinking about everything she had seen. The man she thought she knew had become a mystery again. His calm eyes held memories of a life she could not imagine. She realized that Ryan had not told her everything about his past. In the distance, she saw his ship hovering quietly in the night sky, like a silent guardian. She felt both proud and afraid. Proud because he had saved her people, and afraid because she now understood that he carried power greater than any ruler she had ever known. The people of Vereen celebrated through the night, unaware that the war was far from over. And as the stars shone above, Rian stood alone in the tower watching the sky where the enemy had vanished. He knew that this victory was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, Corvac was planning his next move, and when he returned, Ryan would be ready. The humble man from Earth was no longer just a guest on Vereen. He had become its protector, and soon the entire galaxy would learn the truth about him. The city of Vereen was calm for 2 days after the great battle. People began to rebuild their homes, repair the broken towers, and clean the streets covered with dust and metal pieces from fallen ships. They sang songs of hope, believing the danger had passed. Queen Alira walked among them, speaking with her people, encouraging them to stay strong. Yet deep inside, she knew the war was not over. Rian also knew it. He stayed in the command tower most of the time, studying the data from the first attack. He could see signs of new movement near the edge of the system. He told the Queen that Warlord Corvac was regrouping his fleet. Corvac had lost many ships, but not his pride. He would return stronger, and this time he would come to destroy the entire planet. Queen Alira listened carefully. She saw no fear in Ryan's face, only quiet focus. He began working again with the engineers, improving the defense grid and training them to follow his new methods. He taught them how to predict enemy flight paths, how to save power by redirecting energy, and how to work together like parts of one living body. The people respected him now. Soldiers who once laughed at him now saluted him. The generals who once doubted him now waited for his advice. Yet Rian never acted proud. He spoke kindly to everyone, often saying that he was only sharing what others had once taught him. At night, Alira visited him in the tower. She asked him about his past, about the world he came from. Ryan told her that Earth was a place of both beauty and struggle. He said that humans learned to fight not for conquest but for survival. He spoke of a time when he served as a peacekeeper among the stars, helping colonies that faced war. Alira listened with interest. His stories were not about glory but about duty. He said that real strength was not in destroying enemies but in protecting lives. Before the Queen could ask more, alarms sounded through the palace. The operators shouted that a massive fleet had entered orbit. The enemy had returned. This time there were hundreds of ships larger and stronger than before. Their dark metal bodies covered the sky like a storm cloud. At the center of the fleet was Corvac's war cruiser, a giant vessel armed with weapons powerful enough to crush mountains. The city fell into panic. Sirens wailed and soldiers rushed to their positions. Alira turned to Ryan and he nodded. He told her to go to the safe hall, but she refused. She said that a ruler must stand with her people. Ryan looked at her and gave a short smile of respect. He said then she would fight beside him, but she must follow his lead. The enemy ships began to fire. Bright beams of red light cut through the air, shaking the ground. The palace trembled. Ryan ordered the shields to switch to a layered mode, and the operators followed quickly. The blue energy shield rippled and absorbed the first wave of fire. Ryan then activated the drone units again. The small machines flew out of the city and formed a wide defense net. The sky turned into a battlefield of fire and light. The drones moved with speed, hitting the enemy ships with sharp precision. But the enemy numbers were great. For every ship destroyed, more appeared from the darkness. Ryan stayed calm, calling out commands. He guided the defense like a master composer leading music. Corvac's voice soon filled the communication channels. He demanded that the Queen surrender. His deep voice laughed when he saw Rian on the screen. He called him a weak human hiding behind machines. Rian did not respond with anger. He said only that power without purpose destroys itself. Corvac shouted that he would burn the planet and end their pride. The largest enemy cruiser began to descend toward the city, its cannons charged with glowing energy ready to strike. Rian ordered the palace cannons to focus fire on its engines, but the ship's armor was too thick. It kept coming closer. The ground shook as explosions lit up the sky. Rian knew that if the cruiser reached the surface, everything would end. He quickly connected his control pad to the old Earth ship. The ship responded instantly, flying into the sky like a silver arrow. He told the Queen he was going to face Corvac himself. Alira tried to stop him, but he said she must stay and lead her people. He promised to return. The human ship climbed through the clouds straight toward the massive cruiser. The difference in size was unbelievable. The people below watched as a single shining vessel faced a mountain of metal. Corvac laughed again, calling Rian a fool. But Rian had a plan. He moved with perfect timing, dodging enemy fire and sending coded signals into the cruiser's systems. While fighting, he hacked into Corvac's control network, using knowledge from his past life as a peacekeeper. He searched for a weak point in the reactor core. The battle raged for long minutes. The two ships circled each other in the dark sky. Light flashes filled the air like storms of color. On the ground, Queen Alira watched the fight on the screens, her heart beating fast. She prayed silently for his safety. Inside the cruiser, Corvac grew furious. He ordered all guns to fire at once. The sky lit up with red light. Rian's ship took several hits, but he did not stop. He found the code he needed and sent the final command. The reactor inside Corvac's ship began to overload. Corvac realized too late what had happened. His ship glowed brighter and brighter until it broke apart in a great explosion. The shockwave rolled across the clouds, but Rian's ship escaped just in time. The people of Varine looked up and saw the fire fade, leaving only the stars. Cheers filled the streets. Soldiers raised their hands to the sky, shouting the name of their new hero. The Queen smiled with tears in her eyes as she saw the human ship returning through the clouds. The danger had passed and Varine was safe. When Rian landed, the crowd gathered around him. They called him the protector of Varine, the man who had saved their world. But Rian only bowed his head and said that the victory belonged to everyone who stood together. He refused rewards or titles. He asked only that the people continue building peace. That night, the palace glowed with light as the city celebrated. Alira met Rian in the garden where they first spoke months ago. She thanked him for saving her people. He said that he only did what was right. She told him that when she first met him, she thought he was a humble man with no power. But now she saw that true strength was hidden behind kindness. Rian smiled and said that strength means nothing without compassion. He looked up at the stars and said that there were many worlds still suffering in silence. He hoped one day Varine would help them, just as he had helped her world. The night breeze carried the scent of flowers. The Queen stood beside him, proud and calm. She knew now that her husband was not just a man from Earth. He was a guardian shaped by trials of countless worlds. The humble man had become a legend, but even as peace filled the city, Rian's eyes stayed on the stars. Somewhere far away, he felt new dangers rising. The universe was wide and its peace was fragile. He would protect it as long as he lived. And so the quiet man who came from the stars stood on the balcony of Varine, watching the sky he had saved. He had proven that humanity was not weak but full of courage and wisdom. The Queen beside him knew that her world would never forget his name. The battle for the sky was over, but the story of the humble man and the alien queen had only just begun. Days turned into weeks, and peace slowly returned to Varine. The people rebuilt what was destroyed. Markets reopened. Children played in the streets, and the great silver towers once again touched the clouds. Songs were sung about the brave queen and her human husband, the man who defeated the mighty warlord Corvac. Yet Rian did not enjoy the songs or the fame. He preferred to spend his time helping repair the defense systems and teaching young engineers. To him, peace was not a time to rest, but a time to prepare. Queen Alira often watched him from the palace balcony. She admired his calm nature. Even after saving an entire world, he stayed simple. He still walked through the streets, spoke kindly to the workers, and ate with the soldiers. The people respected him deeply. not only because he was strong, but because he treated everyone as equal. One evening, the Queen called him to the royal hall. The council had gathered to honor him officially. The hall was full of bright light and music. Alira stepped forward and spoke proudly of his courage and wisdom. She said that Vareen owed its freedom to him. She offered him the title of High Protector, the highest honor in their history. Rian listened quietly. When the Queen finished, he bowed before her and thanked her for the kindness. Then he spoke in his gentle voice. He said that true peace does not come from one protector, but from the unity of all people. He asked that the title be shared among the soldiers and engineers who fought beside him. The council was silent for a moment. Then applause filled the hall. The people saw that their hero was not just brave but humble in heart. After the ceremony, Alira met him in the garden. The stars above were bright, shining over the silver leaves. She asked him if he ever missed his home world. Ryan looked at the sky and said he did, but not for comfort or rest. He missed the people he once protected, the dreams they shared, and the lessons he learned there. He said that Earth had taught him that every world must protect itself through unity, not fear. Alira smiled and said that Vareen was now stronger because of him. But she also sensed something in his eyes, a quiet longing. She asked if he was planning to leave. Ryan did not answer right away. He looked toward the distant stars and said that there were other worlds still in danger. The same force that sent Corvac might rise again elsewhere. He said he could not stay forever when others needed help. The Queen felt her heart grow heavy. She had found love and peace in him. Yet she understood that his duty was greater than their life together. He was a man of purpose, not bound by power or place. She told him that Vareen would always welcome him back. He promised that one day he would return. The next morning, the sun rose over the city. People gathered at the spaceport to see him off. His silver ship stood ready, shining in the soft light. The soldiers stood in lines, the engineers saluted, and the children waved flags. Queen Alira walked beside him, holding a small crystal pendant. It was a symbol of her world, glowing softly with blue light. She placed it in his hand and said that wherever he went, this would remind him that he had a home among the stars. Ryan thanked her, promising that he would carry it with pride. He looked at the crowd and told them to continue building peace and strength. He said that the greatest victory was not defeating an enemy, but preventing the next war. His words were simple, but they touched every heart. When the moment came, he stepped into the ship. The engines hummed softly and the doors closed. The crowd grew quiet. The Queen stood still, watching as the ship lifted slowly into the sky. The wind blew her silver robe as she raised her hand in farewell. The ship rose higher, leaving a bright trail behind it until it became a small light among the stars. Weeks passed again, and life on Vareen continued. The people remembered Rian not as a warrior, but as a teacher of peace. The council followed his guidance, building alliances with nearby worlds. They shared technology, knowledge, and hope. The Queen often stood on the same balcony watching the night sky. Sometimes she imagined his ship flying between the stars, helping others as he once helped her. Far away, Ryan's ship traveled through unknown regions of space. He visited colonies struggling to survive and planets recovering from war. Everywhere he went, he brought calm and wisdom. He did not demand loyalty or power. He taught people how to protect themselves and live with honor. Some called him the Star Guardian, while others simply called him the humble man from Earth. One day he landed on a small planet that had been left in ruins by invaders. The people there were weak and hopeless. Ryan stayed among them, helping them rebuild. He repaired their power systems, taught them how to grow food, and built defenses. When danger came again, he stood with them and defended their homes. Slowly, peace returned to that world too. At night, as he looked at the stars, he thought of Alira and the blue crystal she had given him. He kept it beside him in the control room of his ship. Its gentle light reminded him that even far from home he was never alone. It reminded him that kindness and courage could exist in every world. Years later, stories about him spread across the galaxy. Many spoke of the human who saved worlds without seeking fame. Some said he was still alive, moving from one planet to another. Others believed he had become part of the stars themselves, watching over the worlds he once protected. On Vareen, Queen Alira grew older, but wiser. The peace Rian helped create still held strong. Each year the people celebrated the Day of Unity, honoring the moment they were saved. The Queen always began the ceremony with the same words: "True strength comes from those who protect, not those who conquer." One clear night, Alira stood once again on her balcony. The sky was full of stars, more than she had ever seen before. Among them, one star shined brighter than the rest. She smiled softly, feeling that Ryan was watching over them. She whispered a quiet thank you into the night. Somewhere in the endless sky, aboard his ship, Ryan looked at his monitor. He saw a signal from Vareen, their yearly celebration message. He listened to the songs and the laughter carried through the waves of space. He smiled and whispered, "You kept your promise." He set a new course toward another world in need. The engines came to life and his ship moved forward into the deep blue of space. His heart was calm, filled with hope. He knew that humanity's greatest gift was not strength or technology, but compassion and courage. As the ship disappeared, into the distance the stars glowed brighter, as if lighting his path. The story of the humble man and the alien queen became a legend told across galaxies, a story of love, unity, and the power of one man who chose to protect rather than rule. And so, under the endless sky, the promise of the stars continued. The Yai promise that wherever darkness rises, there will always be someone who stands for light.